They say blood is thicker than water, but I've learned that DNA can be thicker than both, especially when it comes to family secrets. My name is Michelle Anderson, and until 3 months ago, I thought being adopted was the biggest surprise of my life. I was wrong. I was adopted at birth by James and Maria Anderson, the most loving parents anyone could ask for. They never hid the fact that I was adopted. It was just part of our family story, like Dad's terrible dad jokes or Mom's award-winning apple pie. Being adopted never made me feel less of an Anderson, at least not until Aunt Karen decided to make it an issue. It started when the invitations went out for the Anderson family grand reunion. Grandpa Anderson was turning 90, and the entire extended family was gathering at his sprawling farmhouse in Vermont for a week-long celebration. Cousins were flying in from across the country, uncles and aunts were taking time off work, and everyone was talking about making it the biggest family event in Anderson history. Everyone except Aunt Karen, that is, as Grandpa's oldest daughter and self-appointed guardian of the Anderson family legacy. She'd taken charge of planning the reunion, and apparently she had some very specific ideas about who counted as family. I found out about her views during a family dinner at my parents' house. Karen was showing Mom the draft guest list, rambling about accommodations and meal plans. "Of course, we'll need accurate numbers," she said, not quite looking at me. "This is a gathering for true Andersons only, blood relatives." The table went quiet. Dad's fork clattered against his plate. "What exactly are you saying, Karen?" Mom's voice had that dangerous edge I rarely heard. "Well," Aunt Karen smoothed her designer blouse, "you understand, don't you? This is about family heritage, about celebrating the Anderson bloodline. Michelle is lovely, of course, but she's not really an Anderson." Not really an Anderson. The words hit like a physical blow. 28 years of family holidays, shared memories, love and belonging, all dismissed because I didn't share their DNA. "That's ridiculous," Dad started, but Aunt Karen cut him off. "James, be reasonable. This isn't about feelings. It's about preserving our family's history. The reunion will feature a presentation about the Anderson genealogy, displays of family heirlooms, discussions about inherited traits. Michelle would feel out of place." "The only one making Michelle feel out of place is you," Mom snapped. But Aunt Karen wasn't finished. "Besides, I've already discussed it with the reunion committee. We all agree, blood relatives only, it's simpler that way." The reunion committee consisted of Karen's daughter Jessica and 2 cousins who'd never dared disagree with her. I'd grown up with Jessica, shared clothes and secrets through our teenage years. Now she couldn't even meet my eyes across the table. "This is insane," Dad declared. "If Michelle's not welcome, none of us are going." "Don't be dramatic, James," Karen sighed. "You're the eldest son, you have to be there. And Maria's been helping Grandpa organize his old photographs for the family history display. You can't abandon your responsibilities just because Michelle's feelings are hurt." I found my voice then. "Don't worry about it, Dad. I wouldn't want to taint the precious Anderson bloodline with my adopted presence. Michelle." Mom reached for my hand, but I was already standing. "I mean it. Go to the reunion. Grandpa deserves to have his whole family there for his birthday. His real family, according to Aunt Karen." I left the house despite my parents' protests. Driving home to my apartment, I couldn't stop thinking about all the little moments over the years when Karen had subtly emphasized my outsider status. The Christmas she gave all the grandkids family heirloom jewelry except me. The way she'd introduced me as James and Maria's adopted daughter, rather than just her niece. But something else was bothering me. Something about the way she'd been so insistent about blood relatives only. It seemed excessive, even for Karen. Like she was afraid of something. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the family photos Mom had been organizing for Grandpa's birthday. One in particular stuck in my mind, a faded Polaroid from a family picnic the year before I was adopted. Something about Karen's expression in that photo, the way she was standing apart from the group. The next morning, I called in sick to my job at the architectural firm and drove to my parents' house. Mom was at work, but I had a key. The boxes of old photos were still spread across the dining room table. I found the picnic photo easily enough. Summer of 1994, 3 months before my birth parents chose the Andersons to adopt me. The whole family was there, lounging on checkered blankets, paper plates balanced on their laps. Everyone looked relaxed, happy. Except Karen. She stood at the edge of the frame, one hand pressed against her stomach, Her face turned away from the camera. She was wearing a loose sundress, unusual for someone who usually favored tailored clothes. And according to the date stamp, this was taken just 6 months before she married Uncle Steve in what Mom always called a rushed ceremony. A crazy idea started forming in my mind. I'd been born in January 1995. Karen married Steve in December 1994. The timing? But no, it couldn't be, could it? I took a photo of the Polaroid with my phone and opened my laptop. Over the next few hours, I dove deep into research. Hospital records from that time were mostly digitized now. It took some creative searching, but finally I found what I was looking for. A birth record from St. Mary's Hospital, January 15, 1995. My birth record. My birth mother's name was listed as Jane Doe, common in closed adoptions. But there was something else. A nurse's note, probably misfiled during digitization. Patient requested complete confidentiality. Family connection to hospital board member K.A. noted. K. Karen Anderson. My hands were shaking as I pulled up the website for a major DNA testing company. I'd always avoided these services before, respecting my birth parents' wish for privacy. But now, the test kit arrived 2 days later. As I swabbed my cheek, I thought about Karen's insistence on blood relatives only at the reunion, about all the years of subtle digs and careful distance, about how she'd never once asked me if I wanted to find my birth parents when most relatives had brought it up at least once. 6 weeks later, my phone pinged with a notification. Your DNA results are ready. And that's when everything I thought I knew about family began to unravel. The DNA results loaded slowly, each new section revealing another piece of an impossible puzzle. First came the ethnic breakdown, predominantly Northern European, just like the Andersons. Then the health markers, showing the same predisposition to high blood pressure that ran in the Anderson family. But it was the relative matches that made my heart stop. Close family match, Jessica Anderson, first cousin, estimated relationship, half-sibling. Below that, close family match, James Anderson, uncle, estimated relationship, father. My father wasn't my uncle. He was my father, biologically, which meant Karen was my mother. The runes started spinning. I grabbed my phone, hands shaking, and called Mom. Not my adoptive mom, my real mom, the only mom who'd ever mattered. Michelle? She answered on the first ring. What's wrong? I need you and Dad to come over. Now, and bring that photo album from 1994. They arrived 20 minutes later, finding me still staring at my laptop screen. Without a word, I turned it to face them. Oh God, Mom whispered, sinking onto my couch. Dad's face went pale. How long have you known? I asked. We didn't, Dad said quickly, not for certain. We suspected. Karen never confirmed it. Mom took my hand. When we were chosen for adoption, we were told it was a closed adoption through the hospital. But the social worker, she hinted that there was a family connection. We thought maybe a distant relative. Then at the hospital, I saw Karen in the maternity ward. She said she was visiting a friend, but she begged us not to tell anyone, Dad continued. Said it would destroy her life, her chances with Steve. We agreed because we wanted you so badly, and we were afraid if we didn't. She changed her mind, I finished. The pieces were falling into place. Karen's distance, her insistence on keeping me separate from real family events, her obsession with bloodlines and heritage. We should have told you. Mom was crying now. But as the years passed, it seemed kinder not to. You were ours, completely ours. The how didn't matter. I hugged them both, these parents who had chosen me, loved me, protected me, even from the truth. Does Grandpa know? Dad shook his head. I don't think so. Karen told everyone she was staying with a cousin in Maine during that time. I looked at the reunion invitation still sitting on my coffee table. The Anderson family grand reunion was starting in 3 days. Karen's carefully orchestrated celebration of family history was about to become something very different. I'm going, I announced. Michelle, Mom started. No, I'm tired of hiding who I am. Of being made to feel less than. Karen wants to celebrate Anderson blood. Fine, let's celebrate it. The reunion was in full swing when we arrived at Grandpa's farm. Cars lined the long driveway, kids ran across the sprawling lawn, and the smell of barbecue filled the air. A large banner proclaimed Welcome Anderson Family, with Karen's perfect calligraphy. She spotted us immediately, her face darkening. "I thought we discussed this," she said, stepping forward to block our path. "This gathering is for blood relatives only," I finished. "Funny you should mention that, Aunt Karen. Or should I say, Mom?" The glass she was holding shattered on the porch steps. Around us, conversation stopped. Heads turned. "What did you just say?" Her voice was barely a whisper. I pulled out my phone, opening the DNA results. "Would you like to see the proof? The test shows everything: genetic markers, family connections. It's amazing what science can tell us about family trees these days." "You had no right," she hissed. "That information was private." "Private?" I laughed. "Like how you spent my entire life treating me like a dirty secret, making me feel like I didn't belong in my own family?" "Keep your voice down," she pleaded, looking around frantically. "Why? Isn't this what the reunion is about, celebrating Anderson family history?" "Well, here's a piece of history for everyone. 28 years ago, Karen Anderson had a baby. Instead of acknowledging her child, she gave it up in a closed adoption. But here's the twist. She arranged for her own brother to adopt the baby, then spent the next 3 decades pretending that child was a stranger." The porch had gone completely silent. Jessica stood frozen halfway down the steps, her face a mask of shock. "Is this true?" The question came from Grandpa Anderson, who had wheeled himself onto the porch during my speech. "Karen? Is she yours?" Karen's carefully maintained composure cracked. "Daddy, I was young, unmarried. It would have ruined everything with Steve." "So you gave your baby to James and Maria." Grandpa's voice was quiet. "And then spent years making that same child feel unwelcome in her own family." "I did what I had to do," Karen cried. "I gave her a good home, responsible parents. What more was I supposed to do?" "Love her," Jessica said suddenly. All heads turned to my half-sister. "You were supposed to love her, Mom. Like you loved me. Instead, you made me treat my own sister like an outsider." The next few hours were chaos. Family members took sides, arguments erupted, old secrets spilled out. Uncle Steve stormed off, shouting about decades of lies. Cousins who had followed Karen's lead in excluding me now looked ashamed. But something else happened too. Jessica hugged me, really hugged me, for the first time in years. "I always wanted a sister," she whispered. Grandpa insisted on hearing every detail of my life, proudly declaring that my architectural talent must come from his side of the family. Karen left early, refusing to participate in the spectacle, as she called it. But her departure felt like a weight lifting. For the first time, I could just be an Anderson. No qualifiers, no explanations needed. Later that evening, as fireflies danced across the farmhouse lawn, Grandpa called everyone together. "Family," he began, his voice strong despite his age, "is not about keeping secrets. It's not about blood or DNA or who has the right to belong. Family is about love. Messy, complicated, sometimes painful love." He turned to me. "Michelle, you've been an Anderson since the day James and Maria brought you home. Not because of whose blood you carry, but because of the love you've both given and received. I'm sorry it took us this long to say it properly. 1 year has passed since that reunion. Karen still won't speak to me, but I'm okay with that. Jessica and I meet for coffee weekly, making up for lost time. She's pregnant now. I'm going to be an aunt. Mom and Dad are still Mom and Dad. Finding out they're my biological aunt and uncle hasn't changed anything about our relationship. If anything, it's stronger for having the truth in the open. Last week, I found a package on my doorstep. Inside was an old jewelry box and a note in Grandpa's shaky handwriting. "This belonged to your grandmother. She would have wanted her granddaughter to have it, not because of blood, but because of the heart you've shown in forgiving this family's mistakes. Love, Grandpa." The necklace inside was the same one Karen had pointedly not given me all those Christmases ago. Now it sits in my jewelry box not as a symbol of bloodlines or heritage, but as a reminder that family is what we make it. Sometimes the truth hurts, sometimes it heals, and sometimes, like a DNA test that reveals both roots and wings, it sets us free to become who we were always meant to be, not just blood relatives, but true family.